beginning of the meeting, or it's your option at the beginning of that agenda item. In order to testify, we ask that you fill out a testimony slip and pass it up to Keiko or myself, and then we'll call you at the appropriate time.
If you want to testify.
Anybody wanting to testify?
Who's this and what's happening with the camera?
I don't know. The press? It's probably because of the article on the paper about connectivity location.
Yeah. You can get
Um,
dressed. You can get dressed up.
I guess we don't have any public testimony at this time.
Nothing? Okay, no public testimony, anyone? Okay. So approval of minutes.
Move to approve the minutes for April 8, 2014.
Second.
Any corrections or anything?
Discussion.
For discussion? Okay. Approve the minutes, vote. I guess we need to do a little vote thing. Yeah.
Yeah? Okay, 6 ayes.
Okay, okay. So, new business, the Mountain View Subcommittee report.
You
Is
probably have
that
to skip
Patty?
that. so
Yeah,
it'll be Patty.
Patty. So we might as well move right to the connectivity, which is Patty and Marlene.
They're not high.
Neither of them are here.
305.
And same with number 3.
Right.
That's the big one. Oh,
Should be done
so.
by 3:30.
Yeah.
Well, we were gonna go here, but
So let's do the mass transit subcommittee.
Right, that'll be June.
Jim?
Well, right now, we are leaderless again.
Oh, nothing.
Mark has resigned, so, we have, we could hopefully meet later on this month at our regular time and decide what we're gonna do going forward. As far as the next item with the letter, I've redrafted it to take Mark's, part out of the letter. Just send it with myself as part of the subcommittee.
You have no Jim.
We have no choice.
But you are gonna have a meeting.
We have our regular meeting.
Yeah, we're gonna have a regular meeting.
It's the fourth.
Before?
Correct. Yeah,
Okay, so.
just prior to the,
Is that what was regularly scheduled?
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay, so we've already got it on the website?
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I mean, we'll have to draft a new agenda and figure out who we can get to chair it.
Do we want to continue to do the draft letters since we're on the mass transit and then go back?
Yeah, that's fine.
Marlene was stuck in the I was
Okay.
worried about it.
Yeah, we figured that.
Okay.
Oh, she, we went ahead and convened the meeting, and we had to skip a bunch of stuff until we got down to item 4 when somebody did.
We pick up on it.
So, I would
And
suggest
Marlene
maybe,
was way up there.
yeah, let's go ahead and do the mass transit draft letter, since we got a forum of Patty, Marlene, and so.
Right,
You can
so
pick back up Patty.
it's near the back of the packet is the letter that was in your packet last month, 2014-19. And then right next to, right beyond that is 2014-19.1, because I took all of Mark's part out so that we could get the letter going, since this has to do with the CIP that we turned in earlier this year. We're trying to get it in the MTA's budget, and if we don't do this letter now, we're waiting another year. So I basically took the letter, didn't really change the meat of the letter, but I basically took out every reference to Mark, and I'm willing to sign it as part of the subcommittee. And I know Tiffany, so.
June, which one, are we considering the one with the red or
Okay.
the one without the red?
Well, the one that was in last month's packet won't work because Mark is no longer chair.
What you have is 2014-19, which was the original letter submitted last month that you're now having on your agenda for consideration to do whatever it is you decide to do with it. then what you should do is then consider 2014-19.1 as a proposal to amend the letter by June. Okay? So you should deal with 2014-19.1 first. And then, once you've dealt with that as an amendment to the original letter, then you can entertain any other additional amendments that you might want.
So we're open to a motion?
Move to approve communication number 2014-19.
Second, one.
Don't you do 19 first and then make the amendment?
Well, you actually, he's right. Technically, you're right. Correct.
Second.
Discussion?
I move to amend communication number 2014-19 and replace it with communication 2014-19.1.
Second.
Good job.
Discussion?
I have a question. So in the second page of the letter, on the second page of the letter, it said that this was requested for inclusion in the final CIP budget proposal due April 11th. However, in the event that this did not happen, we are requesting we immediately submit the CIP budget. So I'm just curious, as that date is coming on, did it happen or not?
As far as I know, this is it is in the mayor's current budget proposal. But to be honest with you, I didn't double check that.
Because I'm just thinking that that part should be updated to reflect what is the current situation since it's past April 8th.
We could just line out
I
that
think it's
phrase, which is, was due, and put a period after proposal.
That's good. Yeah, I thought about that.
We just have to accept this one as
As it
the
is.
main motion and then make another amendment to it.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, discussion.
You say accept this and then amend.
Amend, this now becomes the
Instead
main
of
motion.
amending this
Right.
amended, proposed amendment.
Because then you do too many amendments and you can't catch up. So you should vote on this.
It'll probably be the easy, cleanest way to do it.
Yeah.
So calling the vote on approval of the amendment 2014-19.1. All in favor? Opposed? Abstained? Unanimous.
Okay.
So we make another amendment to delete that date.
Now you
Okay, so what is it you want, what's your
Okay, I
specifically?
I make a motion to put a period after budget proposal and delete which was due on Friday 11th, 2014.
second.
We're basically taking out that
Gotcha.
date.
Discussion? No discussion? Vote, all in favor?
Do we then go back to 19?
Well,
Oh, yeah.
we can amend the 19, but we do still have to vote on the main motion. We can entertain any additional amendments to 19.1 right now, which is going to actually be what we vote on in the end. No more discussion?
We'll call the vote on communication 2014-19.1 as amended. All in favor? Opposed?
You want to, you assume your chair?
Oh, I've lost the agenda.
You lost your agenda?
It's gotten very deep.
You could adapt it with this, copious amounts of paper.
Okay.
And we can go
I
back to
can
number
go-
one.
So,
Mountain View Village.
or we can do 6. 6,
Well, it's up to Patty.
okay. Well, since we did 4 and 5.
You wanna go back to one?
Oh, yeah.
What the hell is this?
Okay, so we're going back to agenda item number 1, Communication 2014-25, the Mountain View Village Center Plan Subcommittee Report. And you have working notes in your agenda, so I won't go over that. You can read them, they're very complete. The Mountain View Planning Group continues to have a strong core of about a dozen people, and we pull in outside of that committee group to all of our meetings, which are on the second Thursday in Mountain View at 6 o'clock at the school. And we have wrapped up our intake on our community survey, and we have a subcommittee that's processing that data now. And the whole committee has started work for the last 3 months on an asset survey of the infrastructure in Mountain View. And in order to do this, we're bringing in county resources. We've had civil defense and USGS on emergency planning and fire planning for the areas surrounding Mountain View. And at our last meeting, we had in the water supply people to explain the water capacity, pumps, reservoirs, and the extent of water service in Mountain View. And our next special resource will be the fire department, and they will be in July. We will not be meeting in June. Are there any questions? That's it. No, we have to wait for Marlene, so let's go on to, what is it, 6? Communication 2014-28 draft letter from the ACE to the planning director urging quick resolve to finalizing adjustments to the draft legislation related to the Pahoa Village District and design guidelines and commencing the appropriate adoption processes. Doing this.
I might update you on the status of those before you deliberate on the letter.
Can we put it in motion, please?
You can. Yeah, this is more in the form of an announcement, but that's
Yeah.
fine. If you want to do the motion first, that's good.
I move to approve communication 2014-28.
Second.
June 2nd.
Discussion?
Yeah, so the update is that we've done revisions to the draft ordinances that were suggested by the planning director, deputy corporation counsel, and the legislative assistants in the county clerk's office. These amendments are non-substantive to what was in the original single ordinance creating the Pahoa Village District and providing for community review of project plans. It just required that it be broken up into what was specific to the Pahoa Village District and creating a separate ordinance for that. And then having another ordinance that addressed generic items and the changes to the zoning code that would be applicable to any special district that had design guidelines adopted by the county, so that everybody's on an equal playing field with that, as far as how a local review committee might be established and what the planning department's responsibilities are and the review process. So there's 2 ordinances that were originally one. And then the third ordinance is one that really didn't change at all except for a couple of little typo errors that I found, and that's the amendments to the sign code, chapter 3 of the county code, which allows for design review and special standards for signage within the special district, within the design district. So those revisions have essentially been done. There being just final tweaks for punctuation and things like that, and have gotten the verbal blessing from the planning director to move forward, so I'm hoping that those will be introduced to the planning commission's agenda at the earliest possible date. And I'm not sure when that will be. I haven't had a chance to talk to that staff in the department to see what the planning commission's agenda, for the Windward Planning Commission looks like. I believe that the one ordinance is gonna have to go before both planning commissions because it affects the whole island. And then the one that's for the Pahoa Village District only would just be the Windward Planning Commission. And then the design guidelines themselves, I've asked the question several times and nobody's argued that differently, that it doesn't really require going to the planning commission at all, that can go straight to the council, since those are to be adopted by resolution. So it looks like we're moving forward, you know.
It is.
Yeah,
Slowly, slowly.
yeah.
So could you explain?
It's not stalled on anybody's desk.
It's not stalled on anybody's desk
Oh,
right
well,
now.
that's a nice
Yeah,
change.
so that's stalled, we've overcome that
Oh,
hurdle.
good.
Yeah.
So could you clarify, I mean, I know I find it out, but exactly now, what is going to be the design review process with the interplay of the community group and planning? I think that, I mean, it's gone through so many changes,
It has.
and what it's really going to look
What
like.
we've settled on, and I'm still got my fingers crossed that this is gonna get past legal muster, but once a design district is established and design guidelines are in place, the planning director will then go to the Community Development Plan Action Committee that that district is under, and ask them to identify a local group that would be able to properly appoint and manage a design review committee for that community. And if the planning director goes, yeah, that's a reasonable group to do it, then that's who the planning director will then send all applications subject to approval, and then, you know, take their comments when they get done doing their review.
Okay,
So it's the action committee will be the one responsible for identifying who that local entity is. It might be a 501c3 like Main Street Pahoa,
yeah.
for Pahoa. It might be the Volcano Community Association if it's in
Yeah.
Volcano, something like that.
But once that group is identified, then they no longer have to go through the action committee.
Correct, right.
Because
They'd be-
that was too cumbersome.
Right, they would be
yes.
working directly with the planning department
Yeah.
from that point on.
Yeah, and it would
Could
just
be
be
an ad
one
hoc
group.
group?
It would have to be an ad hoc group.
Has to be one that's kind of,
There's a lot of organizations in Puna that never, that acted like 501c3s, like act like nonprofits, but never actually went through the whole process of doing
Yeah.
it. They just do the work.
I don't
Without
know,
the
I'm not
papers.
sure whether or not that would work. It might be able to be workable if the action committee felt that there was an entity that was capable of taking on the
Like some of these
responsibility, and
friends
the
of
director
kind of
agreed
groups,
with it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like these
Yeah.
friends of groups.
right.
Well, it seems like, once you, say you identified, as an example, Main Street Pahoa, they're gonna make kind of a subcommittee group that's gonna be doing that, and that's where the ad hoc group could basically come in and be part of that group.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
You know, at Main Street, it'd just be kind of under their umbrella. It's not like it's gonna be Main Street, it'll just be under their umbrella, ultimately. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so anyway, that's all I have.
Yep. Well, that's nice, it's moving. So this letter basically was requested to write it, and basically it's, just urging them to keep this, it just keeps taking forever, keep it moving.
So
The
do we
letter
need a motion
gets-
to approve this letter?
They're already.
There's one on the floor already.
Any further discussion on this? So the purpose basically is to try to keep it moving, so this could actually get done.
If there's no discussion, then we'll call for the question.
All in favor of approving this letter, communication number 2014-2A?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? Unanimous.
Good.
We'll go on to 7. Moving on to agenda item number 7, communication number 2014-29. Draft letter from the PCDP-AC to the Director of the Department of Public Works requesting the reopening of South Lauco Road between Fern Acres and Highway 11 as a high priority project. And is this Sharon?
Need a motion.
Yeah, I know, but, okay.
Move to approve communication 2014-29.
Second.
Yeah, that's okay, we can still discuss it. She's not here.
Yeah, it's too bad she's not here. There was no public testimony.
You
on
can
this.
see that, I'll point out that I did, I guess with Sharon's blessing on this one, do some editing for her on this, which you see in red. And it's being presented to you with those edits in there, but just, it's being shown that way so you can see what I added or deleted. And then you can either accept it as it's presented, or you can change whatever you think is appropriate. Ferris?
Ferris?
The signing, is it really the chair, adding the chairs? Who's sincerely just the lack of it, or just chairs?
Yeah, that's a technical thing. I would change that to Patty as the chair of the PCDP action committee. There's Sharon.
Sharon.
Oh,
We were
good.
just talking about you.
Sharon, we have begun dealing with the letter to Warren Lee. Can you pull out 2014-29 from your packet? And
It's been moved and seconded to approve the letter as submitted so far. We're
Okay,
just starting discussion.
okay.
And I explained that the red changes were from me.
Yeah, thank you for the red changes. So can I discuss, can I say something
Yeah,
about
we're in the discussion period.
that? I was trying to put something together to make sure we had a letter to submit. One of the things I wasn't sure of was how we were going to approach the idea that we wanted to convey that this, our support of the connectivity subcommittee's report and their presentation, or their priority list. I wanted to make sure that we had an opportunity to say that in the letter and have you guys, okay, well, but it hadn't happened yet. So that part of it, I'm sure, needs to be, discussed. So you guys already discussed it. Because the wording says will have been considered. I mean, that's obviously, we could say has been considered, and in paragraph, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4th paragraph, the report of the subcommittee on connectivity and emergency response will have been considered for acceptance. And so I was trying to not lie, but yet have it in the letter so that we could, at least make sure that we agree that we want to say that as a committee. Does that make sense?
And in fact, we haven't even looked at that yet today because Marlene's in the traffic.
Yeah, so I was thinking. But, does anybody have any comment about that portion of the letter? That was the part where I was concerned, and I don't know if you guys had said anything else, but that was my concern, was that we have something in the letter that states either our support or non-support of their priority list that they're going to be submitting, or by the end of
Yeah,
this meeting.
I agree with you that if that's approved at this meeting,
Yeah.
the letter would read better
Yeah.
if it just said, the subcommittee, the action committee has approved, and, make it it would read better and make more sense.
It's more strong also.
Strong, and it has approved, and it is the thing. So, basically, there could be a friendly amendment to this, to rewrite that once that action has occurred. doesn't seem like we need to pick specific wording for that, and basically make it, update that paragraph, essentially.
That sounds like a good idea.
Can I be that vague?
Do you want to,
It doesn't seem like it's worth
We have
trying
to
to rewrite
accept
it.
what Barry changed
I know, we
now
will
first,
accept it,
and
we
then
will do it, I know. But we're having a discussion. So we could accept the letter and then add a friendly amendment.
But then it seems to me that we're taking this out of order because first we should be discussing the, the emergency preparedness and all the suggested connectivity points before we do this. It seems like we're doing it backwards.
Yes, we are, because Marlene's not here.
Elmer?
I move to table communication 2014-29.
Thank you.
Until after the presentation.
Okay.
Thank you, I'll second
do
that.
we have to vote on that?
I second that.
Yes.
All in favor?
We'll come back to that.
Yes. Moving on to communication. Agenda item number 8, communication 2014-30, draft letter to Mayor Kanoy requesting allocation of funds to hire a planning consultant to prepare a volcano village center plan based on the community-generated revisions to volcano long-range plan. Do we have testimony?
Yes. Dan Taylor? How do you get in the door? Who let him in?
Yeah. Bar the door.
Your testimony, you're up.
Thank you. So good to be here.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like
right.
the
My goodness,
story.
we've got all
I
these.
cannot tell you how grateful we are to this committee and to Sharon, and especially you, Larry, for helping iron out the requests that we're trying to make to Mayor Kanoy to help the volcano long-range plan or village plan get pushed across the finish line. It's been in the works for more than 20 years. It's been worked and reworked, and you all have seen a letter from the community that requests funding for a planning consultant to help us polish it up, make it right so we can present it to county officials. And they see a couple of versions of the letter here, and we certainly endorse the changes that you've recommended, Larry. And I'd just like to suggest to you that this final copy, which I guess we have in front of you, without all the red marks on it, is acceptable to our committee in Volcano. Okay? It's communication 2014-30.
Yeah, I'll explain.
Yeah. It's had many iterations, but the one that
Yeah.
seems to work out is just a big improvement over what we said in. So anyway, just want to thank you for your support on this and urge you, please keep with us as we try to push this thing across the finish line. Thank you.
Okay, so Elmer set us a good example last time, so before I explain, Elmer can, or somebody can make a
Someone
motion
else
to,
can.
Remove to approve communication number 2014-30.
Second.
great. Explanation is you'll see that there's a .1 and a .2 version of this letter. So 30 is what was originally sent to me, and well, to Keiko and I. And I was just gonna leave it alone. Then I read it and I couldn't. And so the .1 is the red line track changes version that I'm suggesting. And then .2 is a clean version incorporating those changes that I suggested, so that it's easier to read.
Okay.
So .1 and .2 are essentially the same thing. It's just that .2 doesn't include all the red, the underlining, and the cross-outs.
Just like one grammar.
Well, if there's grammar changes, we can address those afterward, but let's deal with this. So you either, you've already accepted or have a motion to approve 30. Now you need a motion to either, to approve 30.2, I would think,
Yeah.
in play, you know, And then you can discuss that. If you accept it, then if there are other amendments that somebody feels are appropriate, you can bring those up. Elmer?
I move to amend the main motion of communication number 2014-30 and replace it 2014-30.2.
Second.
All in favor?
Should give them a chance to discuss it, maybe, but
Oh, no, discussion comes after.
Yeah.
Discussion comes after.
Discussion?
So,
yeah.
the budget, so was it in the budget and was it approved and forward to, for this 100,000, or was it, the mayor didn't approve that?
No, it was, CIP budgets are always confusing, but it was approved in last year's CIP budget. But that doesn't mean there's money there.
No, so it's prior year, so we have a line item. for
Right,
it.
and it's in there for.
Now we're trying to get the money out of it, okay.
And so now the idea is to try to get the mayor to go find the money to, so that an allotment can be made.
Actually, I thought it was,
Renee?
when I read it, I thought it was.
Yeah, regarding paragraph 4, two things. One is on the second line, community plan has advanced so far. It should be a D on the end of advance, it's past tense.
Right.
But also, I'm wondering about the accuracy of that statement. How does the volcano plan stand up compared to the Pahoa plan in terms of how far they've advanced? And if that's not accurate, then is there really a need to put that in?
That's,
This is a question, not a,
yeah, I mean, it's,
I haven't
I
been
think that the
attending those
volcano
meetings for a
community has advanced quite a bit, on their own. This is my personal opinion, but maybe that's a question Dan wants to take on. If they took their 2020 plan that it started back in the mid-80s, and they basically revamped it.
Yeah, but the statement doesn't say how, considering how long ago they started. It says how far they've advanced, and I'm thinking that I think at this point that the Pahoa plan has advanced farther.
Well, how's that relevant to what volcano?
Isn't it? But it says, we don't know of another community in Puna where a totally grassroots community plan has advanced so far. I'm just wondering about how accurate that is.
It's because their planning effort has been totally grassroots. Pahoa's had significantly more assistance from the county.
Oh, because I see what you mean. Okay, all right.
And I think they fairly complete. Dan, do you want to comment?
Yeah, I really appreciate that question, because it's the right kind of question to ask. The difference between the volcano plan and the Pahoa plan, well, there are two differences. One is Pahoa is this big, the volcano is this big. The other is that the volcano plan has been drafted almost to completion. Pahoa plan hasn't even been written yet. You guys in Pahoa worked on design guidelines and a few other things, but the volcano plan actually has a plan in place. So it's almost ready to polish off.
I haven't attended those Pahoa Plan Steering Committee meetings in a long time, so I didn't know how far along they were on that, which is why I was asking the question.
Beautiful question. But
Okay,
the line behind that is that there are community plans coming up all over the place. You've got a Mountain View, Pahoa, volcano.
I just wanted to make sure that we weren't making a statement that was not accurate. I just wanted to make sure about that.
Anything else?
Thanks.
Ferris?
I know we CC other people on other letters. Wouldn't it be efficient to have the county council CC'd on this, so they see this communication besides just the mayor? To show that there's a lot of work going on in the community?
Or just their county rep?
Yeah, I
That
think,
would be,
yeah, it seems like we're sending,
Sure.
sometimes we CC a lot of folks, and sometimes we don't. I'm just curious the protocol of these letters, who they're going to.
Yeah, I mean, you could, it's just a matter of information. The thing is you're directing the letter to somebody that can actually do something. The council doesn't go out and create,
But it does show strength.
they have to approve something that the mayor ultimately might submit, that's true.
I'm just more about making them aware that
They make a motion to add it.
I make the motion that we add the county council copy on this letter.
Which would be Brenda. Brenda Ford.
Second.
Any discussion on the proposed amendment?
I think that's a good idea.
Renee?
One more grammatical correction here in the final
Renee,
paragraph.
we're still
We have an
dealing with
amendment
this,
here.
this amendment, you're changing the,
Oh, okay.
Okay.
we'll
Is
come
there
back
any,
to you, we'll come back to you.
any more discussion on adding Brenda to the letter? All in favor? Unanimous.
Okay,
All
Renee?
right, back to discussion. Renee?
Final paragraph. We desire to work collaboratively with the county. Insert the word the.
Thank you.
Is that a motion?
It could be, it's just a recommendation.
There's a couple
Clean up your-
different spots where you
Yeah.
add the in there. though.
Right. There's a couple places where
Layla, what other places do we need to?
nouns are not modified by,
We need a D on the end of advance.
We have got
We got
advance.
Just make sure that
Yeah, my edit version, sorry.
Sharon?
I think maybe.
I was just wondering if that
Some of that out.
is an appropriate method of, naming the county. Can you say with county? Can we say that instead of with the county?
It's just to me, it's just a way of speaking. I know that, for example, Dan talks that way. And then I used to put the in front of nouns that he would have in letters all the time. I missed one.
Can anybody knows how to count?
It's in paragraph 3, line 2.
I don't know, I really
No,
don't know if
that's-
it's proper or not. you know.
The English teachers raise your
Doesn't
hand.
we
sound
don't really need it there.
terribly bad or mean. I don't find it like the idea.
If there are no more typos or grammar to approach, we'll entertain an amendment, a motion to accept these two typo corrections.
Can you repeat the exact amendment where we're at, please?
It's to add a D to the word advance and the second to the last paragraph. So it says it as advance. And to add the word the in front of county in the last paragraph.
Oh, I have one.
Sharon?
Paragraph 2, the second line, well, I'll just read the sentence. Over the past 2 years, the DCA has engaged in a process of updating and revising 2011 Volcano 2020 plan and has resulted in community, and then it says a vision, goals. So I don't know if it's in a community vision, where A is supposed to be
yeah.
before community.
Community semicolon.
What is it supposed to be, community, and then A before community?
Yeah.
A community vision, goals and
It reads funny.
objectives.
Yeah, so it doesn't sound right as is, but is the A supposed to be out of there altogether, or should it be in front of
In
community?
a community vision, maybe community and
Just
up
delete it.
should be transposed.
Yeah, I think it's a vision, goals, objectives, and actions.
Delete community.
No.
No, so what?
Or in a community
Oh,
vision.
community, in a community vision.
Yeah,
Oh,
just switch
I
the
see.
two words.
Yeah, that would be more.
So community and A should be transposed,
Right.
right?
Yes.
Okay.
Can we adopt all these
Any,
amendments?
yeah, they're not substantive. Any others? No more? Going once, going twice? Take it away.
All in favor?
Okey-dokey.
We're back to,
Voting on the letter.
any more discussion on accepting communication 2014-30-2, dot 2,
As
as amended? All in favor? Let us go back to agenda item 2, communication 2017-26. Connectivity and Emergency Response Subcommittee. Marlene Hapai and Patty Pinto will lead a discussion on connectivity locations report submitted at the April AC meeting and seek AC approval for transmittal of the CERS recommendations to the Department of Public Works via the planning director. Do we have public testimony?
Yes, John?
My comments is, I don't want anybody to miss the magic that these two ladies have just done. When I came into this room in 1989 or 1990, the Puna Traffic Safety Committee was working on this issue. And from there to here, the total success of connectivity and emergency response in Puna was Moho Road, which Renee and I worked on, and Palo Main Street. Because the 5 police officers that patrol the entire district, if they were up in Volcano, they had to come all the way back to Cal to get to Palo. So the fact that they have produced a document that outlines the connectivity and have gotten a level of consensus on this issue is to be duly noted. And that includes the money that was spent that we got from the federal government on the Puna Regional Circulation Plan. I mean, we didn't get the kind of buy-in that they have succeeded in getting. Which isn't to say you're not going to get some blowback. There's going to be some people that are going to be unhappy. And people that, if this had happened earlier, wouldn't have been there to be unhappy. So in that sense, it's going to be harder. But they both of you, where's the other one? Thank you.
Is it 2 and 3?
That's 2 and 3.
Okay, thank you for that.
Is there other public testimony on this? Marlene, take it away.
Thank you all for your patience. Patty, I don't know how you got here before me because you were behind me. What did you do?
I was in front of you.
Oh, you were in front of me. I was surprised when I saw you here. We got stuck in a 1 hour delay just trying to get from Curtistown to Cape Cod. So we got that. Otherwise, I would have been early. That was the plan.
A real life example of why we need other ways to go. See, if there's been an alternate route, it would have gotten.
You know, I was thinking that I was happy, you know, I had enough time to think, just real quickly, my fantasy. A little droid up there, you know, telling us, okay, this emergency route is open, you people go this way, you go that way. Okay, Larry, I'm done. I had a lot of time to think. Okay, before I present the report along with Patty, I just wanted to start with thanking those that brought all of us to this point. As John says, it has not been easy anywhere along the way. And I wanted to start first by thanking those who established the Puna Community Development Plan, because this was the plan that was put together with all the community input, the 130 meetings, the everything. It took a lot of work. And then to thank those here in the Action Committee and the subcommittees who have taken the plan and now are in that implementation phase, which is also very difficult now getting it to happen. I'd especially like to thank the core members, Patty, Steph, Ferris, Hannah, who gave so much of their time and expertise to get us to where we are now. And I'm not saying we're at the end, it's just that we're here. And to those volunteers, which have dedicated, I would say, since January of last year, over $100,000 worth of their time and expertise. The prep fair alone, civil defense calculated $32,000 worth of volunteer time in one day with 300 volunteers. I want to thank them. Because so often, people see my name. And I want to make it clear, I'm just one. I'm the Kaleo, the voice. But there are so many that have made this happen. And lastly, I want to thank all of the community members here that are here once again to continue to give us the input we need. And I promise not to cry. Okay, thank you. Okay, with that, our report is to ask the Action Committee. This is the Subcommittee on Connectivity and Emergency Response. to approve and forward our report. The background and goals, and you all have the report, and I don't know if the community members all have this, but in January 2013, when we started, it was important to say, okay, what are the highest priorities, what are the goals of this subcommittee? So that all the way along we could reflect back and make sure we were doing what we said we were going to do. So the highest priority being, and this all came from the PCDP, to promote health and safety and establish a series of connectivity locations between Puna subdivisions and surrounding areas. And our desired outcome being to identify and develop a combination of road connections of various types agreeable to residents that enable safe, direct, calm passage, as well as provide more efficient access for emergency traffic. And so what were the things we were able to do in this period of time? Well, one of the greatest strengths was to have civil defense jump on board with one of our action committee members here today being the one to initiate it and get them to begin. And I thank Sharon for that a long time ago. So developing a partnership with civil defense, having a prep fair, and this was the one I mentioned, 300 volunteers, 1,500 to 2,000 actual participants that came, that were able to benefit from the exhibits, the presentations, the demonstrations on topics such as emergency routes, centers, shelters, planning, communications, security, services, and sustainability. And to use that prep fair especially to do two things, to gather data first on what emergency evacuation routes might people use if their regular routes were cut off. And so we got this from the community. Not one suggestion is mine. I live on Mohel Road, okay? Needless to say anymore. My route is there, okay? But to gather suggestions, and then to also do a survey to find out the emergency preparedness of our communities and our families. Okay, so with that, we summarized the mapping data, and that is what this report has a lot to do with. But we continued. That was just the beginning of data collecting. We sent out surveys to the communities. We had testimonies. We had presentations. We did as much as we could with a big budget of our time and our passion to make a difference in this area because it is so needed. Okay, and we used all of this data to put together the connectivity maps that are available to everyone. It is in the public domain on the county website, and it is there for that reason. We want to be as transparent as possible. We want to get as much input as we can. There's still much more to collect. And so today, under rationale and request, because we know that there may be some funding available, at least that's what we were told when we began, we want to ask, because funding may be available to support high priority connectivity locations that have strong community support and are ready for implementation. The subcommittee submits its prioritized list for the 4 areas with the attached documentation. And these lists are based on community input and take into account the connectivity criteria developed both by the, given to us by the County of Hawaii Department of Public Works, what they're looking for, and the Puna Community Development Plan. So these are the criteria we use. And our 2 actions that we ask of today, first, that the Connectivity and Emergency Response Subcommittee requests that the Action Committee, the PCDP, approve this report and accompanying documents. And secondly, the subcommittee requests that the PCDP Action Committee forward the prioritized list and accompanying resource documents to the County of Hawaii Planning Department for distribution to the Department of Public Works and to county council members representing Puna for additional input, implementation, and funding. And with that, I would like to turn it over to our mapping guru, Patty Pinto, and she'll talk about the actual locations that have risen to the top, but also know that the others are also in the list, so they have not been lost. Patty?
Okay, well, Marlene touched on the mapping room at the prep fair, and what happened in the mapping room is we divided all of Puna up into 9 mapping zones. So when you entered the room, you say, where do you live? Sent you to the appropriate table. When you got to that table, somebody who lived in that area and was familiar with the roads in that area said, okay, let's locate where you live on this map, and we do that. Okay, let's take a green pencil and trace how you get in and out of your subdivision or neighborhood. And they would do that. And then they'd say, okay, what if we block that? What would you do? And they'd say, oh, I can go over here this way. So we'd mark that one in red. Okay, what if we block that one too? What would you do? And most of the time we came up with, oh, those are the only 2 real roads in and out of my neighborhood. But if you have a 4-wheel drive, you can probably get through over here. So we marked that one too and took notes. And we collected all of this data and brought it back and put it on a spreadsheet. And there were quite a few. And then we had articles in the newspaper. We communicated with county council representatives representing all of Puna. We mailed surveys to all the subdivisions. We had public testimony for 3 months here at the AC, trying to get further community input. And then if you look at, in your packet, the criteria for points of connectivity, what we did is we approached the Department of Public Works and we asked them, what would be your criteria for completing a connection in the Puna area? And they gave us these criteria. And then we come through the PCDP and get all of the criteria on connectivity that are mentioned in our plan. And so we wrote those across the top of these spreadsheets. County criteria, and these are the criteria from the PCDP. We then again went out to small community groups in all of the areas and asked them, the people who lived in those communities, to weight these items on a scale of 1 to 5. And then we totaled it up, and we got a number, the highest meaning it meets the most points of approval in the connectivity areas, and we made the top 3 in each of the areas the first, second, and third priorities to be addressed by Public Works. The areas that we separated out were the volcano area, Upper Puna, which is Akatsuka down to Hawaiian Acres, Middle Puna, or Puna Waina, which is Hawaiian Acres down through HPP, and Puna Kai, which is Pahoa area, Leilani, beaches and shores, all that way to Kalapana. And so each of those areas has 3 priorities, top priorities for consideration. Now, during all of this, please be fully aware that the county has not been asking us which roads they can start work on next. This has not been something that we've had to worry about yet. But we hope to be able to in turn go around and say, we do propose that you consider looking at these areas. And these maps show the areas, and we are still, this is a liquid document. So if something comes up, like we have a good choice, but it's in a floodplain, well then we have to downgrade it because it doesn't meet a criteria as well as we thought it might have. Or there might be a huge community outcry. So we'll downgrade, according to the criteria. Is there a public opposition to this project?
I just want to mention something here, because there was that real temptation to ask the experts, ask the county, what do you think, is this one, or this one that? But when you look at the Puna Community Development Plan, it specifically says a non-government organization will recommend. So that's why this is the step. We're getting the input, we're as action committee making a recommendation, And then we can rely on their expertise. But the temptation was there.
Are there any questions here? Paris?
Where do we talk about these testimony letters in this discussion? Because it's relevant.
I'll have to defer to you, Larry, because I don't know the answer.
It is testimony, it's written testimony, and I don't know that it's appropriate to really discuss it because it's not on the agenda. But it's provided for your individual input. And you can take that into consideration in any amendments that you want to propose or how you decide to vote on whatever motions are made. That to launch into discussion about John Doe's testimony letter, I don't believe is allowable because that testimony letter is not on the agenda. So you have to take it in the same vein that if John Doe was here and he comes up and testifies, you hear his testimony, and then during your deliberations on the agenda item, you personally take it into consideration. Sharon?
I was wondering if we have the subcommittee on connectivity, why are these letters coming to our attention? Should we not be deferring them to?
Because it's testimony that was provided by people via email to you, the action committee.
Okay.
So that's why I've gone to the trouble to log them in and make it available to you so that you can, the idea was for you to have it for consideration while you're discussing the agenda item. It doesn't do any good for you to get it next month after you've already dealt with the agenda item.
Should we make a motion to accept it and then go into discussion?
Yes.
'Cause, yeah, let's make a, so I move that we accept, how would we do this?
Communication number
Communication number, thank you.
26,
2014-26.
And I second that.
And now we can go into a discussion about it. I have,
Ferris had his hand up for discussion.
okay,
Straight into it.
okay, it doesn't matter, you go and then I
So,
go.
just a clarification, I guess, because, on your report, it's asking for, in this rationale and request section, or sorry, actions requested. I'm kind of confused because when the newspaper article came out, my phone started ringing.
Oh, yes, sure.
So, are these suggestions just suggestions, and then the county can then, because the very last sentence says the county council members requesting for additional input, implementation of funding, which means two different things. We want these implemented and funded, but we want additional input. So I'm confused by those points. What are we asking for? Are we going another round and asking for additional input on these suggested roads, or these are the roads and we want them to be implemented and funded?
Well, I think that our council reps have actually not given us input to date because this is coming from the community up to them. So now they can give us,
So it's the county giving input.
yes.
Okay, so with that knowledge, when the fair was last year, and I sent emails out, so I don't mean to blindside you two with this, but the Seaview community has meetings all year long based on Kalani trying to get an access road to get water and all this stuff, and they created all these maps and so forth. And one of the things was these roads, and one of the testimonies is what they concluded to be their road and not through their community. So the discussion was, is this what we want to be implemented? If that's the case, then number 3 under Puna is not what, and one of the preferred to do a project where there's no community opposition. Well, the community is opposing this now because they've met throughout the year about all this. So I say that if your intent is to get it implemented and funded, then I'd like to, if that's the intent, then I need to make an amendment to take that one off the list.
Marlene, do you want to?
Well, I just wanted to say, I think what we're asking at this point is to accept the report this point in time. Okay? So, but part of it says there will be additional input. Now, if you look at how we've set it up, there are 4 lists. Each one has a number 1, 2, and 3. If we can get number 1 from each satisfied or implemented and funded, we'll be doing really well. So I don't expect to come down to number 3 on every list. I don't think we do, right away. But at the prep fair coming up in August, we will have it all up. And we will encourage the community once again. So if there are problems, to let us know. Because, when you open it up, some hear the message, some don't get the message, so we'll continue. But the reason we have them prioritized too, say for example, we do get further input, like you're getting it now, okay? And that is not something that the community desires. We can go down to priority 4, which is literally 1 point different from priority 3. So it's flexible.
Well, I guess you just said something different with the input than she said, so.
Let's make sure everybody gets a chance to talk. Elmer?
Well, I think it kind of goes with the same question Sharon mentioned, where why are we getting this? So I think what Marlene is saying, with any changes made like this, it's a fluid document. If CVU Estates does not want that road and so forth, they go to them next meeting or so before they present something different. So for us to change it, I don't think really is our position to change at this point over this. It has to go through them and they present it to the AC afterwards.
I worked the mapping room, and I happened to work the table where Kalapana Seaview is on, and there were a lot of people who not a lot of people came to the table, but many of those who did were from the Seaview area, and they mentioned that, the big problem is if there's a tsunami or something happening, or if the cliff falls away or whatever, that's the only way we can get out is on Red Road. And we need something that goes Malka of the subdivision. And so I remember people drawing that line from the back of the subdivision going up to Highway 130 through a sort of different routes. And so it strikes me as strange when I see Jim Gordon's letter, and he says no road through Seaview, and nobody was talking about a road through Seaview. They were talking about a road starting at the very back of Seaview. And then he says, you don't even know what kind of emergency you're talking about. And everyone did know what kind of emergency they were talking about. They were talking about an emergency that came from the ocean side, which would prevent them from leaving their community, which would sort of landlock them into that subdivision. And so when you get input like this, if some of the points the person makes don't seem to be quite accurate or quite valid, I mean, do you consider that community opposition, and we have to go down to the next item on the priority list instead? Or, I mean, how much discretion do we have to ignore some of the community, quote, opposition?
Okay.
How much discretion does Public Works have to consider whether those things are valid points or not?
Okay, thank you. Oshie?
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same sort of dilemma you've expressed, Ferris, in terms of our role here now. First, again, I want to thank both of you for all the work that you've done. I mean, you have my admiration, because this is a difficult subject. I guess I would personally, being on the Action Committee, I feel like I need to be responsive to the community's opposition, and I understand why Seaview is concerned about running a road through their subdivision. So I would have a hard time putting my vote of acceptance on this without looking at trying to change that road through Seaview, because it seems like they're coming up with some really viable alternatives. And then I have a whole nother issue, which is railroad. And I think it's great in theory, and I can understand, and I've just gone through this, and Larry has too, we've gone through this over and over. And when I first got on the action committee, it was like, yeah, railroad, and I can see why people want railroad. Because you look at a map and you look at it and it looks great on the map. But there's so much opposition and so many roadblocks that I feel a sense of frustration because I live down that area and we really need a route. But if that's set as our number one, it's not going to happen. So therefore, we're left with nothing. Because sections of it are private, and it goes on and on. A lot of opposition, HPP. I remember we had the people, Hawaiian Homelands people came here and testified, and quite lengthy about how they will never approve that. And then it goes on and on. So I feel very concerned, and then we're back basically to PMAR. On one hand, I can understand and I respect doing it from the community standpoint, but yet the community's just going to look at a map and not really understand that it's really not a viable alternative. And so therefore we're approving a report and requesting this of people, and I almost feel like I would look foolish to put my stamp of approval on it because I know that it can't happen. So that's just my dilemma. So.
Did you want to talk to me?
Yeah, I would love to speak to this. The subcommittee saw their job not as being the judge or an analyst of all of this data. Our job was to take the information provided by members of the community and to make it a report in a completely understandable thing. There are a lot of points of connectivity throughout this report that might go through somebody's lot, might have community opposition. There are things that just aren't going to happen while any of us in this room are alive, and yet we did not see it as our job to take it off the list for any of those reasons. That's not our decision to make.
Right. June?
Well, I have to speak for HPP too, because I was on the PMAR committee in HPP, and our problem is that coming in on both sides, you're coming into unpaved roads that are privately paid for and maintained. And plus railroad happens to wiggle 5 times going through HPP. So you're crossing 5 different streets in HPP to get from one side to the other. So it is a big issue for HPP. And even though it looks good on paper, in reality, it would really be a real hardship for us to try and maintain that for any kind of added traffic.
Let me make sure that everybody in the action committee has had a chance to speak. Lynn?
So, thank you very much for
Yes.
both of them for this is amazing. I think it's important to really understand what people are saying too, with the feedback from the community in Seaview as well. I mean, and also in Paradise Park, or former Paradise Park. But as it states right now, people are driving on roads 32, 31, 30, all the way down to 28 every single morning to get through. Whether we like it or not, they're running through the top sides of Paradise Park through people's yards every day. I mean, there needs to be an alternative to it somehow. I think it's a good thing to support, and I think that we should still be open to gain more community input to it. And not say that this is our final definite, area we should focus on.
Sharon?
I want to piggyback on that. I really believe that we're almost having a subcommittee meeting right now, and it's not fair. They have been meeting every month. They've stated their meeting dates. We, the action committee members, should at least resolve to the fact that we could have attended those meetings. We read their summaries. We've done due diligence on our part, but you have to start somewhere. And the fact that the report has been worked on for so many months and really is, I have to say, because I was in there some, here and there, It was from the community. It is not from these guys. It's from the community. Somebody had to take the data and, you know, look at it and figure out where this goes and that, and they did it. But they're not trying to be biased, or they're not trying to be, you know, blind either. But they have to take what they have to work with and work. And so that's what this is a result of. And yes, it's gonna keep coming. Yes, it's liquid. We have to keep that in mind. We can't say, oh, I'm saying that I believe we shouldn't say, oh, I cannot accept this because it doesn't have what I think it should have, and, oh, we've got this. We'd never get anything done.
Right.
It's a liquid document.
Susie, did you have anything you wanted to add out of this point? Okay, Ferris?
Can we clarify the liquid document? Because I thought we talked about earlier that we were asking for implementation of funding of this priority list. So how liquid is something when we're asking for implementation funding of this priority list? Which will help me make my motion. If that's truly the case, then I would like to make a motion to change the document.
If you'll allow, maybe I could provide an observation, and then that might help you define your motion. I think what's sticking in the craw of some folks is item number 2 under action requested and the way it's phrased. In that this is a report that this subcommittee created, and the listed connectivity points are a result of the voting process that you undertook in the various communities. Unfortunately, a lot of the people that participated in that process were uninformed. I think Railroad Avenue is a perfect example of that. Railroad Avenue, in my 10+ years of community planning in Puna, has reared its ugly head over and over and over again. And continually we've had to explain that that is just not a really viable alternative to Highway 130 for a whole host of reasons, some of which Oshie touched on. But the idea in concept has some validity and should be further explored. And the whole PMAR effort was an attempt to move in that direction. That being said, I think that if number 2 stated that you wanted this report submitted to the county for additional input and for these recommendations to be considered for their viability for implementation and funding in the future. Some of them are going to get shot down because they're just not going to work. There may be overwhelming community opposition in Seaview to an upper road connecting, and there may not be. But for, at least in my personal opinion, for the action committee to respond to 2 or 3 vocal objections without having the benefit of any more input than what Marlene and Patty and the rest of the subcommittee had over the last year and a half, how long, since August last year, almost a year that this process has undergone. That's an uninformed decision-making process in my opinion as well. That being said, back to Ferris. Well, wait a minute. If I may, Susie never got a chance, so let's give her a minute.
Thank you. So I thank you for that, and I think that the next line, the top 3 connectivity locations, my understanding from my discussions with you is that all these areas that are identified, including Seaview, are really only have a one-way access, and it is a priority to get them an alternative route. And so maybe there's some little bit of wording, because we still want to honor that these are the priority areas that need, really need immediate attention, with suggested alternative routes, maybe even just one word, because there could be another viable alternative if explored a little more. Like we see the need for Paradise Park, we see the need for Kalapana. These needs are great, but maybe we just, maybe there's some other little viable place, but we don't want to dishonor or put it off just because the route that we propose is maybe not viable like railroad. So I somehow would like to move this forward and maybe just the top 3 connectivity locations as priority with these possible routes. And that way you have a bit of still flexibility, liquidity within this document, but you preserve the great need and the spirit and intent of what you put forward.
I'm not clear if that was a motion, or just,
It's just a I'm just throwing it out as a discussion.
I think so.
So,
Elmer.
Elmer? Okay.
First, go ahead.
so, I understand that, you know, the fair happened. I just want to talk about timing. The fair happened, and then that was when 46 people voted on Seaview. And then after that, they've had many community meetings afterwards where they actually came up with their own plan, and that plan didn't come back to the committee with these alternate routes, saying they don't want it through the community. Here's our suggested alternate routes. So to that point, the community had met many times and came up with these red lines, alternate routes, in a very big community meeting 3 or 4 times. So that, in this testimony, has failed to get back to the committee. Therefore, what's suggested is not their desired route anymore. They've met within the community and come up with an alternate route. So that's why I'm asking the liquidity of this and changing it, because if it's worded the way it is, then I need to make a motion to say this community we don't have the latest data from a much larger audience. So I'm confused how this is going to proceed, and you're getting implementation funding dollars for something the community doesn't want.
The idea of getting dollars is ridiculous.
First of all, I'd like to say that I think we're kind of going in circles with all this, because the whole point of this is it's literally a report, you know, and for us to come, and I agree with everybody, it's not something that you can just, you know, blindside and not really care what they say. That's definitely not the case, but being the fact that it is a report, that they have been working on it for a while, it should stay as is. If you feel there's something wrong that you know, you don't appreciate or you don't believe in it, you have the option to abstain. And when it comes to that, you know, if we really feel as a group that this is not something you want to go ahead and move forward yet, because, for example, Seaview or some of the things that are there that don't make sense, I think we should refer it to committee and, you know, bring it back next month if that's what we want. But I think you guys have worked so hard at it that when it comes to, it is what it is. It's not something that, like Patty mentioned, that's going to happen overnight, or this isn't going to be approved. If everything or half of it gets shut down or shot down, I mean, this is what we're presenting as a report. So I think we have options, but really going around it and saying, oh, it's certain letters and so forth, at this point as an AC, I think if we have those reservations, we should be talking to them and not making the changes on their report.
Sharon?
I definitely second that, not that it's a motion, but I just want to remind everybody, this has been well publicized. Bears here on the subcommittee.
I know.
Okay, so I'm really hoping that the action committee members hear what is being said in regards to us having a valid, we voted to have a subcommittee. We have the subcommittee, they did their job, they did a lot of work. And we're trying to take a report that they're submitting in truth and actually modify the report when it's the truth. So I would appreciate action committee members to really consider that.
Let's go to Renee next. Renee?
I agree with Elmer and Sharon. I feel that we're sort of getting away from what this is. This is a report that they went out, they had meetings, they had the mapping room at the prep fair. There's been a lot of work done. They gathered data. This is the report that tells us what the data was. They gathered the data, they analyzed it, they put things into categories. And this tells us what the result of that research was. You may not like the result of that research. For example, if someone did a paper about racism in America and found it was a really high figure, and you didn't like that, but you can't change the data. The data is there, and that's all it is, and we are accepting that data. They've already said that this is not it's not carved in stone. They're going to be taking more data and adding to it. This is the way the data looks at this point in time. And that's all we have to do in accepting the report, is saying, yes, this is the data, and they analyze it, they put it into the categories, they put it into the, checked it off according to the various criteria, and this is how it came out. This is the spreadsheet that shows that. And it's not the end, because we're going to continue to modify and refine this.
Let's go to Oshie, and then Leila, and then Marlene. We'll give you a chance to respond.
There were a couple things I wanted to come back to. I guess I don't see it. Well, first off, I just want to say, when I bring up a possibility of changing it, we change things all the time. I don't see, anyway, it's not meaning any disrespect. But I wanted to come back to something that you said, because we kind of got lost in it, because I thought I liked the wording of it, was suggestions to then get feedback from Public Works. So how were you wording that? 'Cause
I was
thought
suggesting
made
that
sense to me.
perhaps some slightly
Phrasing of
changing
what
the
we're
phrasing
approving.
of the number 2 action on page, I guess
Uh-huh.
it's page 2 of the report.
And that's what kind of
Yeah.
Susie was getting at, and Ferris was getting at, which I really appreciated, because I personally couldn't vote for sending this as a recommendation to Department of Public Works, because I see that as a flaw. But if I sent it to Public Works like you were viewing, for them to review it and give us feedback or something like that.
Well, for them to
Yeah.
consider as possible connectivity locations for implementation.
And maybe coming up with other alternatives to consider them and to give us their feedback or something along that line, and possibly and to put some hedges in it so that aware that these are some possible alternatives, but maybe there's some other alternatives that could be considered.
So, if I may, somebody might want to, Oshie,
Yeah.
come up with some
They're kind of
amending
working on
language to that part of the report,
Report.
which
So
then we could have, Marlene and Patty and other people that were participating on the committee could have an opportunity to chime in on that. But while perhaps somebody's working on some possible amending language there.
Yeah.
Leila, did you have something you wanted to add?
No, I liked what you said, though. That's what I was
Yeah.
gonna say as well.
Yeah.
I mean, because I agree with what Ferris is saying. I mean, I think it needs to be clear, and then for the period to end with input, and then we clearly define what implementation fund is, request that, in the event that, you were saying before.
Yeah,
Kind of
the-
lengthy, but.
Marlene, do you want to respond to all
I
you've
want to
heard?
respond to what you're talking about right now, and that is the language. It was an assumption on our part that they are going to look for the viability. Because when we did this, it wasn't to say, oh, you can't make that suggestion, because. No, it was an all-encompassing, tell us what you think. So,
Yes.
that was an assumption. However, I have a few words that might help.
great.
For additional input to the viability of the recommendations.
Yeah, where is that?
Right
So she's
on number 2,
For additional
additional input as to the viability of the recommendations, but keep implementation and funding, because that's why we're presenting it. There are funds available. We want them to go farther than just say, okay, well, this is what we think. This is what the community thinks. Let's get going,
Yeah,
you know?
and
Even if it's a small step, let's move forward, not just get hung up on trivia.
yeah, but I understand what you're saying, but it isn't
You're-
trivia. I'm out of line. I
You're
didn't
out of
get
order.
recognized. I
You're out
know,
of order.
but I guess, okay. yeah.
Okay, so let me just kind of finish. Those were just the words.
So
but-
would you,
Yes. Those
you're
words again.
proposing an amendment to your own
Yes.
thing here, and I think,
Would you-
actually, the amendment
Yes.
has to come from an action committee member, but if you want to repeat it, one of them can adopt it as their own.
Okay.
I wrote it down.
He wrote it down? You got it? Okay.
Um,
Ferris,
Are we ready to start making amendments now?
we're ready at any time. Whenever you're ready to propose an amendment, you make a motion.
Well, because I'm back to who is actually verifying recommendations. Is it just the county we're asking for? Are you going to actually go back to the communities and get their up-to-date recommendations? Because it didn't sound like that's what's happening.
It seems to me that what this document says is that the community is interested in greater connectivity, and they are concerned about these specific areas. And then the county can say, well, we're never going to look at that one, but this is interesting. So then they would go out to the communities and begin to do some work. It would take them 2 years to research the viability of something, but this is a report on community interest in connectivity to the county, so that they would know that all of us out here want to be able to get around more easily than we have been able to so far.
Are you,
I'm ready to make a motion, but it's not the one you guys think I'm making. But I'll make a motion.
Yeah, let's hear it, let's hear it.
So I make the motion that in light of the CV community having many community meetings and their priorities have changed after the survey was done, that the motion is on the section of Puna Kai, the lower level, replace number 3, sea view, with the next highest item, which is Hawaii Shores Beaches, HPP map 7, CL number 48.
Which one is that? I'm sorry.
If you look at the map, if you look at the very last page, it's the next priority list under sea view, number 4.
And was that one of the community ones that they gave? Do you have a picture of it?
No, but it's to replace it. So I'm making a motion,
taking number 3 out?
taking 3 out in light of the community having their own community meetings and so forth, and not wanting this road that's been suggested.
Okay.
And
You want to amend the actual report?
yes.
Yeah.
Okay, that's his motion, is to remove item number 3 from Puna Kai list of 3 priorities, Seaview Estates.
And replace with the 4th item, which
Replace
is
it
the,
with- okay.
which is the Hawaii Beach Shores Beaches HPP map 7 CL.
Is there a second to that motion?
Can I?
No. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, for the sake of discussion then, it's been seconded by Oshie. Anybody, any discussion?
Do you want me to clarify?
Yeah, where is this other one?
There's no
that you-
map in the packet because the packet wasn't
It's the
including
beach
that.
road between Hawaiian Beaches and Paradise Park.
Beach road between Hawaiian beaches and, I
the
love
four-wheel
that,
drive
the
road.
government beach road.
Yeah, Government
Yep.
Road.
The one that's undrivable, pretty much.
Yeah, but it's a right of way. It's a legal right, a public right of way. Yeah.
Sharon,
I don't agree with amending a report.
please speak up.
I don't agree with amending this report at all. It is a report, it should stand as is. They've done much work. You were on the subcommittee, you had an opportunity to give your input as a member of the subcommittee. So I don't agree with amending the report.
Okay, can I address that?
No. Anybody else have discussion on this?
On
Nobody
this
else?
particular motion.
Leila, on this motion that Ferris made, correct? Nothing, Leila? Renee?
I agree with Sharon.
Let's take it a vote.
Any other committee members?
I am very partial to that road being a priority, because I think it could actually truly happen. It's come up before. Fred Bloss, when he was a number of years ago, had funding for it. I actually would have proposed it more as a more immediate replacement for railroad, because railroad isn't going to happen. I was expecting Ferris more to see one of these other ones on that you're proposing, but, okay.
Okay, if nobody else on the action committee has anything to say on this amendment that Ferris has introduced, Marlene, would you like to say something about it?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that the whole process is such that the criteria will continue to be addressed as suggestions move forward. So, as I mentioned to you in an email, maybe you didn't get it, there is 1 point difference between that one and that one. And if number 1, when it goes forward, if it's not doable it's immediately going to move down the list. That's part of the procedure. So, I think we should have faith in the procedure. Here's the report, just accept it. And, it will happen. This is not the end, this is the beginning.
Any more discussion on the amendment? I would call for a vote on the amendment.
Okay, all in favor of the amendment to substitute Puna Kai Choice 3 with Puna Kai Choice 4? All in favor? Opposed? Abstain?
We only have 2 abstains. Everybody
So,
else is a
can
no.
I see who's opposed? One more time. 1, 2, 3, 4. We don't have a vote.
No.
No,
It
It
failed.
didn't
No,
pass.
it failed.
Fails, that's all.
You need 5 ayes for it to pass. So now do we have any more discussion on the main motion, which is to accept the report as is? Sharon?
I would like to amend, I'll make a motion to amend on page number 2, under actions requested, number 2, the last sentence to include, to read,
As to the viability of the recommendation.
The last sentence, council members representing Puna for additional input, and then add as to the viability of the recommendations, comma, and then input and funding, period.
What, could you
Wait, 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 wait. No, it's-
Like this,
repeat it again?
this
You
way.
go.
Okay.
I second the motion.
Yeah.
You check with the boss, you got all
What?
that? She-
That's not-
On top of this. I'm still stuck on spelling viability.
I second.
Before going into discussion, would everybody like to hear the motion again?
Yes.
Please.
Okay.
Keiko,
Madam
can you read
Keiko.
the?
I can read it if you want.
Let's ask her to do it because she's got the official record here. But thank you. You want Susie to do it?
Yes.
Okay, Susie.
Okay, so amending number 2 to read, the Connectivity and Emergency Response Subcommittee of the Puna Community Development requests that the Puna CDP AC forward the prioritized list and accompanying resource documents to the County of Hawaii Planning Department for distribution to Department of Public Works and to County Council members representing Puna for additional input as to the viability of the recommendations, comma, implementation and funding. Perfect. Period.
Is there any discussion on this amendment? All in favor?
Opposed?
Opposed? Abstain?
Actually, what did you do? You gotta do one of the 3.
Oh, well, whatever. I'll vote for it.
She voted whatever.
Yeah, I'll vote for it. I wanted to ask a discussion question. That's why I was hesitating. It went really fast. I was about to. I'll live. I know.
Snooze, you lose.
I know.
Chair,
Is there,
I'd like to call the question and move on to the main motion.
thank you, is there,
Let's see.
We've only made one amendment.
I know there's a rule for this.
Elmer, what's the rule?
Once you call the question, you go straight to vote.
No.
If there's no other,
Yeah.
if there's no other, yeah.
There has to be no objection, I believe, to any
Another
discussion.
Call the question is undebatable. It's non-debatable.
Yeah.
Call for the question is non-debatable.
Debatable.
That's what I thought.
You must vote now.
It doesn't
And you
matter
can vote
somebody
it down,
Yeah.
and then you're back to discussion.
I guess that's what happens.
Yeah.
Voted down the original. What are we voting on?
All in favor of approving Communication 2014-26, Connectivity and Emergency Response Subcommittee.
As
amended.
As amended.
Unanimous. Okay.
Let's take a break.
Thank you.
And by the way, people, the map showing all the Puna connectivity is on this table over here if anybody wants to look at it.
While we're on break, I will announce that I made 2 copies of the DVD that Elmer offered. And you can take these and view them at your leisure. And I only made 2 copies, but then if Susie's gonna take one and Sharon's gonna take one tonight, when you get done with it, please, well, what you wanna do is if somebody else wants to look at them, contact Susie or Sharon and figure out a way to pass it around. How's that sound, folks?
That's great.
It's so big.
We've had 2 meetings. This is the subcommittee on connectivity and emergency response since the last action committee meeting. We are now meeting twice a month. The first meeting for the prep fair because there's lots of preparation for that, and the second meeting to focus on connectivity issues that we probably just couldn't do at the same time. So just real quickly, the prep fair meeting, we went over the organizational chart and the coordinators, and you have a list there of all the areas included in planning. And then we went, once again, into the sections that we'll have, organizing them into exhibits, workshops, demonstrations, and other activities. We decided not to have just verbal presentations this time because it just didn't quite fit with the fair atmosphere. So it would be more workshop oriented. And the same sections, but we added 2 new sections. It will see their social connectivity and community resources because we would recommend those were very important. Okay, now on the second page, already we've started sending lists out to the sponsors so we can have our little emergency preparedness bags again. And we're going to call them starter kits so people don't expect a full-blown emergency kit, which we cannot provide. So starter kits. All coordinators also were asked to submit lists of supplies because we did get $4,000 of funding from Councilman Curran. And so we did that, and it's being worked on right now so we can meet the end of the fiscal year budget. And basically, from county monies, we'll be buying printed materials, signage, banners, uniform shirts, supplies, equipment, services, and food. And that's just a little under $4,000. So that's what we can do with county monies, and we'll solicit other funds to pay for the other things that county funds cannot do. Okay, so that was the prep fair meeting. The connectivity and emergency response meeting basically focused on discussing the connectivity location prioritized lists and the 2 motions that we presented to you. The 2 motions were made to accept the lists for the 4 areas and to accept a report to accompany the prioritized lists with a few edits, and that is what we presented to you.
Thank you very much. And I believe we skipped to agenda item number 8. No, number 7. Number 7. Communication 2014-29, the South Lauco Road, and we tabled this, so
Yes.
how do we get it off the table?
I move to, I just write here. I move to take from the table, communication 2014-29.
Need a second?
Second.
Okay, Sharon?
Discussion.
Did you call my name?
Yes.
It's open for discussion, the communication.
Do I say what I said before?
You can say what you need to say to, or whatever it is you think you need to say.
We can now change the tense on that.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, oh, yes. I move that we, change the tense on, in the 1, 2, 3, 4th paragraph, the letter, to read, the report of the subcommittee on connectivity and emergency response will have, was accepted by the AC at the May 13, 2014 CDP meeting. And on the fourth line, a subsequent motion was made at the May 13, 2000 meeting to accept this priority list, or was passed. I don't. A subsequent motion passed at the to accept the priority list from the subcommittee on connectivity and emergency response, in addition to a motion to accept this. So we never made this other motion, so can we just scratch from after response, just have a period, and then scratch the rest of that particular sentence out? So that is, did I make?
I'm lost.
I got it. Believe it or not, actually.
Yes,
I don't
we never
have it.
made that motion.
Okay,
Can you read that, Larry?
I will repeat Sharon's motion. It's amending the fourth paragraph to read as follows. The report of the subcommittee on connectivity and emergency response was accepted by the AC at the May 13, 2014 CDP meeting, in which South Lockville Road is clearly designated as the #1 option for Upper Puna. Please see attached documentation. The subsequent motion passed at the May 13, 2014 PCDP meeting to accept this priority list from the subcommittee on connectivity and emergency response, period. The rest of the sentence is stricken.
I second it.
Did we get an actual motion to amend the sentence?
That was a motion by Sharon.
All in favor, or discussion? All in favor? Abstentions? Opposed?
Oh. I vote in favor.
Okay, we thought so.
I've got a couple.
Is there further discussion on this letter?
Grammar. The first sentence, the very first paragraph, we hereby submit this is letter, the is go bye-bye. And on the third paragraph, ITS is one word, no apostrophe. And on the second paragraph on the back page, it should be witnessed, past tense. On the third line, has personally witnessed numerous traffic accidents.
Where's the it's?
ITS is the very first line in the third paragraph.
Oh,
Expressing
but it is stricken.
You
Well,
tried to correct me, but.
Well, you're not really,
Okay.
you're not looking at the corrected.
Okay, all right.
And on the first paragraph, should it say we, comma, the Puna Community Development?
Good, yeah.
And what was the last one?
The, should be past tense on the third line of this paragraph, should be witnessed.
Leila?
So paragraph 5, first line, owns by the county employee.
Why?
As you are where the second word is owned by the county employee.
Oh, okay.
And then
same paragraph,
Third,
Public Works paved almost a mile of, okay, I was reading it wrong.
Did we spell Hawaii correctly?
Yeah.
Oh, no?
With Okina and
That I automatically do.
Okay.
Yeah, just okays and Kahakos automatically go in and I finalize.
Guys,
I need a copy of the council member of this group as well. or any other
There
business
are-
regulatory as well.
that would be Senator Kern.
Send a,
Is that a separate amendment? Or can we include it? Okay.
It takes a village to,
Yeah, this is
we
one I
want to do it more
resisted
better.
redlining. This is what happens when I don't.
Yeah,
Okay,
Are
so
there
do we get them all?
I think so.
The grammar, then,
spell Smith.
Are there,
shall I read out the grammar
you
changes?
got it.
You got them?
yeah, but I'm the one that has to put the letter in final format for her to sign, so you're gonna check it for
Hand that
correction
to-
when I do that? Because if I don't have them, then
I
they don't get
usually
in
do,
there.
but.
Hand that to them.
You gonna give me your thing? Okay. Good enough for me.
Is there further discussion on these amended grammar things?
So in the last the second to the last paragraph, fourth line down, it says students and parents as a result of the opening sub-local will not contact travelers. And then they try to think about the data to get to from so forth, but it should start with as a result
Yeah.
of reopening sub-local rural, comma, students and parents will not contact travelers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
Last paragraph again, need, this is a need, comma,
Are you missing it?
I think we need to check reopen, I think that's something I noticed.
Any more?
We should have commas after Dr. Barbara Riley.
Where are you?
Very, very,
Second to last paragraph.
yeah, a comma after Riley and a comma after
Yeah, principal.
school.
Elementary school.
As long as we're getting commas in.
Okay.
Is there more discussion on these changes? Is there any more suggestions?
No, it was submitted to me. Quite frankly, I'm so tired of editing people's letters.
You did a great job, I didn't know it.
Well,
Don't make them.
Okay, so Lisa's gonna be in there.
All in favor of these changes? Opposed? Abstained? Is there more discussion on this letter? Renee?
I'll move that we accept the letter.
so that motion's already been
You
made.
just need to call it to a vote.
Yeah, it has to be called to a vote now.
Okay.
We couldn't have been in discussion without it. There was
Should've
a
won my
motion
hearing aid.
previously, right? Did we have a previous motion?
We did.
Yeah, we did, I
We did.
thought so.
It's a long time ago.
It was post-connectivity location, the pre-connectivity location.
All in favor of accepting communication 2014-29
As amended.
as amended? Opposed? Abstained? Now we move on to agenda item 9. The AC will consider amending the operating guidelines adopted by the first AC in December 2009 to include the mission statement of the PCDP, which reads as follows. The mission of the PCDP is to develop a sustainable, efficient, and organized plan that serves the diverse community of Puna and protects and nurtures the island.
I move that we adopt this, what would be you call it, mission statement.
I second because it'll help to keep us focused.
Oh, you want to be a little more specific about adopted where?
Consider amending the
I'm suggesting
operating
that you
guidelines.
look at
Okay,
the
I move
operating
that
guidelines.
we amend the operating guidelines as adopted by the AC in December 2009 to include the mission statement as follows.
Where do I see fit plugging it in, or you guys?
What's that?
You have a copy of the operating guidelines. I'm asking where specifically in the guidelines do you think that ought to go?
Right.
I thought those were put under the
I think
subtitle
it should be
there.
part of her motion.
Okay, where do we put it,
By the
Susie?
vision
Here we
statement,
go, discuss it
by the,
first.
by the vision statement, it's in the front. Sorry, there's no mission statement listed in the operating guidelines. There's a vision statement, but there's not a mission statement, and so Keiko had to search to find it, and that should be up front on our guiding documents. So if I had them handy, I would think it would go mission, vision.
So,
Yep,
look, let me throw a suggestion out there.
You put it wherever you want to put it.
You notice
No,
how,
don't give him
notice
that
how the
latitude.
operating guidelines are structured. You have the name, the authority, the purpose, maybe a new number 4 might be vision statement. And then number 4 now would become number 5.
Which is what, mission statement?
Well,
Where's
it's
the-
name, authority, purpose, then instead of duties and responsibilities being number 4, the vision statement would be number 4. Duties and responsibilities would become number 5. You have,
Okay.
nobody's looking.
okay,
No, 'cause I
perfect.
didn't bring them.
That's what I'm
Perfect,
trying to
Larry.
get. Well, I
We
mean, I
knew
can
you'd
put it
come
in
up
at the
with a
end, in
plan.
the middle.
Okay,
Should not be in the end.
No,
that
I-
sounds good, number 4. Okay. So I so moved. Okay. So I move that we put in the operating guidelines as number 4, as written.
Second,
Second.
discussion.
Good.
Is there any other discussion on this issue?
I think Lena wants to say something, but she's not.
I'm just trying to go back to the day that I originally brought this up, because it was somewhere in the operating guidelines that we looked at, that I asked what the mission statement was. Because it said that we were supposed to carry out the mission statement, so it's somewhere in the operating guidelines.
If it comes in after number 4, you could have a reference after that, C number 4, if that's in what we're talking about.
Okay, is there any discussion of having this as number 4 in our operating guidelines? All in favor? Are you not ready, Lou?
No, I'm not.
May I suggest that if you find something after this vote
So I
happens,
just have one quick question.
You can
Well-
always ask for a motion to reconsider.
Very close, that's all.
if you think that there's another amendment that might be appropriate to the operating guidelines, you can propose it.
Well, it just states the mission of the PCP is to develop a sustainable vision organized plan. The plan is already there, we're just implementing it, correct?
Yeah, purpose and they may be related, but they are distinctly different.
But we're not developing the plan.
No, the
No.
plan's been developed. We're implementing the plan.
This is the
Sorry,
purpose of the
okay,
This
yeah,
one
no,
says
actually,
to develop a plan.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's do the vote again.
Yes.
All in favor? Abstained?
Unanimous. Very good.
Agenda item 10. The AC will discuss the idea of organizing a town meeting as indicated on the AC operating guidelines. And who brought this idea forward?
We brought it forward in our meeting at Larry's office.
Yes.
Fine.
Would anyone like to speak to this?
Yeah,
Or-
I read in the operating guidelines that we were supposed to have a community informational session.
Yeah, so
And
it's,
that hadn't happened yet, and it hadn't happened,
yeah.
so.
It's under number 4E, it says host an annual town meeting to report on progress and implementation of the CDP to the wider community.
So what we talked about was collaborating with something that was already happening and maybe having a table there so that it was cost effective, you got the people there, and just, you had an informational table that people could get information, so it was fairly painless and inexpensive on our part, as opposed to
Prep fair is coming
the prep fair. That would be the perfect place, the prep fair.
That's one, yeah.
Or depending on if you want to keep the prep fair when it comes just to that topic, maybe we can do the food market or have a table there. Just a suggestion.
Another idea. Whenever somebody feels compelled to make a motion, be my guest. But it's okay to discuss ideas, I think, like this for now. Okay?
In the Mountain View survey, one of our questions was, are you familiar with the Puna Community Development Plan? And the response from our community was 53% negative. So we have a burden to let people know who we are and what we're doing and what their part in it is.
That's probably an improvement over the percentage Puna-wide the day after the Puna CDP was adopted. Right, John? Never mind. Go ahead. That's what I'm getting at. Yeah, it was on the front page, and the people that didn't know about it were probably in over 60%. We had people come out after 2.5 years of planning going, I didn't know you guys were making a community development plan. Susie?
I'd like, my only resistance to Elmer, your proposal is that I'd like this to be available, to not have any potential barriers to access to this meeting, and in the light that Makulu is now charging $1 to get in, for parking.
They are?
Yeah.
I just heard that.
Yeah, so I would propose that we find venue that there is no barriers to attendance in any way, shape, or form. And even though $1 might seem minimal, I still think it's a potential barrier to participation.
I agree.
Leila?
I think the prep fair would probably be the
I'd like
best-
to make a
best
motion,
place.
make a motion.
Well, Leila had
So
her
I
hand
think-
up, so.
I think having like informational sessions like at the prep fair and like maybe at the parades or whatever that's happening around town is good, but I think it's also important to have an official time where we have like a meeting that invites the community to come in and look at, okay, copies of it, you know, any kind of concerns or, you know, whatever it is that we host something of that nature.
We tried to put in a budget request for that once, and it didn't go anywhere, remember? So funding something like that is going to be a problem unless
But
we
it
have.
shouldn't take that much funding to get
Yeah.
like a community center or something
I
to.
will remind you that, yeah, the request was shot down, but then subsequently funding was included in the general, that's why we got CAPO.
For the.
Because they
yeah.
went ahead and put the funding in the budget after they said no. And then they, minor detail, didn't bother to tell me about it
Oh, did
until
they
like
put money
7
in?
months later.
Did they put money in for the fair?
Well,
No.
it's just, it's money, support money for the CDP action committees in general.
Okay.
It's not earmarked for any specific activity, but I think Patty was
Patty's
the
next.
next one to.
It might be timely for us to put together an article for the newspaper.
that somehow gets sparked all kinds of controversy.
It has.
And that's it.
Another thing I wonder about the possibility of us not having an agenda one time and making one of these regularly scheduled meetings an opportunity as a community information session, as you said, that's open to everybody, and then we all are committed to being here at that time. I don't know if we can afford a.
Challenging on a
It's-
Tuesday between 3 and 6.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look into the whole sunshine law and how that comes into play on that one, but
Okay.
well, I mean, it's something we can look at. So, anybody that wants to contribute, who hasn't yet? Sharon?
Can we make a motion? Can I make a motion?
Yeah, anybody can make a motion whenever they're acknowledged.
I'd like to make a motion, but I don't want the motion to be. Well, I want to move on, I want to get, okay.
I'm sorry, Sharon.
Larry really liked that.
She might be around that sometime.
But I would
You
like
gonna
to
make a
make a
mo-
okay, I'd like to make a motion that we, set a date before we leave today, or set a tentative date for a community meeting. Informational meeting for the community.
You need a second for that. Is that a second? Okay, so the motion on the floor is to set at least a tentative date for holding a community informational meeting? Is that right? Discussion?
So I think this is a good general place, but I also feel that like I don't know, that maybe we should have, I don't know, just 2 different like smaller informational meetings, like one in Pahoa and one here or like not so big areas, so it's easier for everyone to kind of get to, like, I don't know.
Elmer?
I definitely like the idea Susie brought on board, and if there's any way, if you could check and see if we actually can make one of the meeting dates that, but instead of waiting 3 to 6, is there anything going on after 6?
Afterwards.
Or we can start later
Oh.
and stick around a little later?
Just stay
6 to 7.
6 to 7.
Right,
And if they want to come early,
After a regular meeting?
yeah.
right.
There you go.
So then that way they get to see the meeting, and then also stick around afterwards for
Some balloons and
Sharon was actually next.
So I agree with the idea that, having meetings closer to maybe some of the subdivisions or areas like maybe when the volcano, I was thinking 4th of July is going to be a big celebration day for volcano, and it could be one point of reference for us or a venue for us to have that informational community meeting there. And maybe some other area is going to have something special going on, where we could have them there too.
Before we go back to Susie, I just want to make sure, Oshie, did you want to contribute? I saw you raise your hand.
Oh, yeah, my one comment is there has to be something to entice people to come. I think you could be quite disappointed that not hardly anyone would show up unless there's some sort of enticement of food or music or some sort of sense that it's a celebration somehow. That would be my sense. Larry's telling secrets. No fair. He's telling secrets.
Planting a seed. Renee?
Well, Sharon mentioned that there's gonna be a lot of activity in Volcano on 4th of July, and I don't think that would be a good time to have a meeting. However, it would be a great opportunity to have a table and put out information. Maybe we could throw together something that said, the PC, the action committee really has made some accomplishments, and have a list of them.
Or even have a,
So many people think they're not doing anything. Who knows? Does anybody know what they're doing? No, I don't know what they're doing. Therefore, that means they're not doing anything. And I see that on the blogs all the time. I tear my hair out. But I think it would be a great things like that would be a great opportunity to have an outreach table and to tell people this is what we've accomplished. This is what we're working on now. And another opportunity is coming down the pike. Uncle Robert's planning a sustainability talk story. They're calling it
Puna.
But they're not allowing that, should we get it?
And they're gonna be having
They're not
booths
allowing
and exhibits there?
It's all sustainable.
What?
It's all sustainable.
Well, you don't think that the action plan has something to do with sustainability?
That's an idea. Susie?
So another idea is we could do a combination of a few events that come up over the air, and also we could send a letter out to all the different community organizations, just as the committee, the connectivity committee, and let them know that a few members would be willing to come and speak to the community members as part of their general meeting to inform about what
Presentation.
a presentation, what we do. So that's another multiple ways of getting the word out.
I'd like to propose that we form a subcommittee to do an annual meeting for the PCDP to inform the community.
Okay, we have a motion on the table that we have to deal with. That doesn't sound like it would necessarily fit in as an amendment to that motion. So maybe we should deal with it, set a tentative date, so the discussion should be centered around that actually. We've kind of veered off into a lot of other good ideas about when and where. So discussion about the tentative date motion, I saw two hands go up. Elmer?
If I may suggest that we, even though that is a great idea, I enjoy it, and I think it's really what you have to do is set the date, but I think we're like, you know, we're kind of working backwards. So if I may suggest that we vote on this and then move on to actually setting the subcommittee to get that going.
Leila?
So I'm just looking at dates. We can either do it after a meeting that we have, or we can do it like an annual meeting on a Saturday.
Well, the motion was to set a date in general, not necessarily to set a specific date. So
Okay, so
is
let's look
is
at,
the committee ready to set a date, even tentatively now? And that's really basically the motion on the table, right? Sharon?
Yes.
It was your motion.
You want to withdraw your motion?
Well, I was thinking about it.
We can withdraw it, or we can vote on it and then move on.
Yeah.
Say it again?
I said, you can withdraw the motion and she can withdraw her second, or we can just vote on it now and then move on, depending on how the vote comes out.
That's what I was trying to say.
Yeah.
Are you done talking?
yep,
Okay.
Sharon?
I'm not trying to beat a dead horse, but I am wondering if we could set that tentative date for the August prep fair, to know that we're gonna have that date. I don't see why that's such a far-fetched idea for us to agree on, even if there is a subcommittee that would be formed.
I should have been.
But see, now you're amending your original
I'm not
motion.
amending a motion, we're still discussing.
Oh, okay.
Okay, we're still discussing, so this is part of my discussion.
My bad. Any more discussion? Let's vote on whether to set a date or not.
Let's vote on whether to set a date for the PCDP community meeting. All in favor? Opposed? Abstain? One.
We're now
Yeah.
back in discussion on the topic in general.
Back to the discussion of having a community meeting for the PCDP.
sorry, what was that?
We're still discussing having a
I
community meeting.
move to, I make a motion to form a subcommittee to set a calendar of informational events for the community regarding these functions of the community.
Discussion.
Who's got a second?
Leila and then Elmer.
So I think it'd be good if we like buoyed up, right? If we did, like a couple of us did the one up in 4th of July up in Volcano, see where it was? Mountain View.
That's what the subcommittee
Um,
will do.
You know,
We can't do the subcommittee yet, we have to, like, talk about
so can you,
forming the subcommittee.
okay,
Okay.
Yes, that's correct.
They were both talking at once, and I couldn't hear either one of them. What was,
I was just saying that we were discussing forming the subcommittee, right?
right, the motion was to form a subcommittee to come up with ideas on
So,
Puna CDP community event or events.
so I just, I don't know, it seems like it's a lot bigger than, of a deal, we're making a lot bigger of a deal than it should be. Because it's coordination report we have, so.
Okay. Okay. Did you,
That's all I'd like to do.
okay, we have one volunteer to be on it. Any more discussion?
Call the question.
One other discussion, do we have other people who are volunteering for the
Not a discussion,
subcommittee?
he called the question.
So I wanted to have one more discussion.
It doesn't matter, he called the question, it's parliamentary procedure.
Okay,
So.
all in
the-
favor of forming a subcommittee,
No, it's all in favor of closing discussion.
closing, no, call the question, doesn't get
Yeah.
it.
It doesn't matter.
I thought you said you did that.
And it goes just,
Doesn't need
well,
We
it goes
don't need
to create the committee,
support.
once we create the committee, then we go and ask who's volunteering, and there's a committee to start.
Well, we could do that too,
Right.
but,
So
okay.
for this, calling the question is voting on the actual matter, the topic, the motion on the table, which is to create the subcommittee to start with.
Okay.
I think it's
Wait,
great,
wait.
I think it's great.
He probably is.
All in favor of forming a subcommittee? Opposed? Three.
Okay.
Further discussion on the subcommittee?
Wait, what,
There's no more
Are there
discussion.
There's volunteers for the subcommittee.
so there was 3 and 3, or what was it?
It was 5 to 3.
Okay,
So
I
who
didn't see.
abstained?
It was 5 to 3?
It was 9 of them.
9.
We didn't vote.
Abstained.
Oh,
I was in favor.
oh, it was 6 to 3. Sorry. So we have one volunteer so far.
Two.
Okay, Ellen? 3. Susie? You can have one more. But you
Well, I
gotta
guess
know.
I have to because I don't want it.
We have 4. You don't feel drafted.
We go with sunshine.
Then, presuming then that you guys will be coming back with some specific recommendations for the whole action committee to discuss at the meeting next month.
Maybe we can start on that. Yeah.
Okay.
Have we
We'll get one more
beat
thing.
that one to death?
Yeah.
Okay. The action matrix. Larry and Kate, take it away.
Well, this is revisions based on the input that you provided last month to the matrix, which again is a living record of what's going on with all of the actions in the Puna CDP, some of which are actively being implemented through the efforts of the action committee, or county agencies, or other entities within the community. And keeping track of what's going on, who's taking responsibility for doing what needs to be done, that kind of thing. So it's sort of a combination of a work plan as well as a history. And I believe if you've had a chance to look at it, you'll find that the recommendations that you came up with last month, and they were relatively minor as I recall, have been incorporated into this template, proposed template. And the item number 2, which is the Pohoki Bay Keiki Pool Swimming Area Project, gives you an example of what those progress reports, the progress to date section, gives you an idea of what kind of stuff would fit into that section of the matrix. Hopefully you've had a chance to look it over, otherwise we could be in trouble.
This is exactly the sort of thing we should have on our exhibits, you know, to show people what we're doing and where we're at on the various projects.
Well, I mean, that's,
A little bit too much.
that could be kind of overkill, but it's definitely something that would be posted on the website.
Well, if nothing else, just maybe the one page.
But what, I think what Renee's asking about, and it's important, because you do want to inform the public, as well as anybody else out there, whether they're a newly elected council representative, or a mayor, or a department head, that's been recently appointed. That's why we have the annual progress report, which we really need to get busy and do our, I mean, yeah, it's May, half over, and actually it should be done by now.
So that report.
But we need to get that out, but we can do it, you know, it's just a matter of going through all the meeting minutes and stuff for the last year, and updating what we had on the report last year.
I don't
But
think
that's
we
a
have to
good
do this
synopsis.
overkill though, Larry. What I was thinking was say, that they just, like, not all those pages that are sort of blank, but say like the one like this that is, with a couple of nice photographs of Koiki, you know, surrounding it as part of a display. And then it may be another display which would have another item, you know, which would be lined up like this, that is the
Oh,
narrative,
yeah,
what's
selected
happening,
items
what
would
we're
probably
doing,
be,
and then
yeah.
some visuals,
Yeah.
you know, of the area
Okay.
that we're talking about.
So basically, what you guys need to do is decide, is this really something you're willing to put some effort into keeping up to date? Because if you're not, then there's no sense in us taking the time to go reformat the whole thing, and then have it sit there and not get used. So before we ask Keiko to spend a lot of time and energy to do that, and then me too, because I gotta look it over and work with it on it, you guys need to make a commitment to start utilizing it. And if you do that, then that's gonna be the impetus for your successors on this committee to do it in the future. And then it will become a living record of what's going on.
I think it's wonderful.
Yes, I think it's.
But I really need that commitment from you guys. Homer.
I have a quick question. I don't know if this was said before or not, but do we have access to this? So for example, who's going to be updating it? Is it something we send to you update, or does that lead have access to that file and be that?
You will all be provided with working copies of the template. In other words, if they're in Word format. So you'll be given a Word format template. And you can have the Word, if it's the ongoing one. If, for example, she's the champion of this one, she'll be given the updated Word version of this every time it's updated, so that she can provide updated information to us to look at, make sure it's, you know, proper, and then get it posted on the website to keep the website up to date. Okay?
I move that we adopt the action matrix.
Oh, so to your point, when it's more about formality, so if Oshi's updates hers, we need to bring it to the committee to report on before it gets put out there? Or is it, 'cause it seems like we get lost if it just starts getting posted on there without, we won't know who updated something unless there's like a timestamp or something that's been last touched. I'm just kind of curious how, if the champion is updating something, and then they submit the submission to you,
Yeah.
is it gonna come back to a meeting and say, oh, you can give us a report?
Is that something you think you need?
Does the subcommittee do that report? If they're, I don't know if they all have one or.
No, there's no subcommittee.
Yeah.
Could there be a line on here that says, somewhere that says, you know, a revision or update, like you do on the bottom? Last updated right here.
It does say that.
Last
Well,
updated.
when we do the updates online, it's automatically recorded online on the website. When I go in and I log in as me and I do an update, it keeps a record that I did that update. Same thing for Keiko.
Well,
But-
I do think that the champion, if it's significant enough change, that that champion would report at the committee, at this meeting, because it's gonna get lost if we don't know. It's just something they posted, because there's a lot of stuff that up there. I mean, how many of these we're gonna have? We're gonna have 30 or 40 of these up there, right?
Well, it depends on how many are actually
moving.
Yeah, anything's happening on them, and if there's
Right.
nothing happening, we're gonna obviously, reformat the ones that have activity first.
I guess it's, the champion blow their own horn that they got something to the next step. And
Could it
report
go
it to
under
them.
announcements?
Yeah.
Like the champion announce, hey, we got $40,000. We're gonna be able to move forward with this study.
On the, being under announcements on the agenda, on the meeting agenda?
Or
Because it won't
notify
be things that'll
Larry
be
in
open for
advance
discussion.
and get on the agenda. Even
Well,
if-
I mean, yeah, obviously, if you have,
You could have a standing agenda item for announcements on
Progress.
on progress, project progress.
It just seemed like we're gonna get lost in this paper trail of everything, champions updating everything, and I don't know how they're gonna get them.
Can we put that in the announcements? It's already there.
So I'm saying ongoing agenda item.
trying to,
Project.
I think that's really important.
Usually nobody says
you
anything
want
for
to have
announcements, so.
monthly reports on all the updates to the matrix.
I think it's substantial, the champion should say it's substantial enough to make it. And that could be an announcement, I just think they have to be the one going on hard on the project. It's not worthy of the announcement.
I'm
We need
just
a
trying to
place for
think
it.
if that's, is it something that's,
It's not
I
something you
I
can
don't
take
wanna say,
action on.
no, is it worthy of taking up meeting time to do that, but I don't want it to come out sounding like that.
Well, then, it's just, we won't know. Well, we won't know that something's moving forward.
Yeah.
There's a,
Okay, well, if that's what you wanna do, is have that
it's up there.
be on the agenda.
Yeah, but I think it.
Do I have to make a motion to do that?
Well, if it's under announcements, it's not something I think that you can actually go into discussing and act on. It needs to be an agenda.
That sounds
item.
better, because if we don't open it for discussion, I
Right.
think that's what we don't want
And
to
it
do.
doesn't take up the meeting time.
Well, it does, because you're still gonna have to put up with the announcement part.
That's better than the whole discussion. If that individual has a
I
question,
Then they can put it on
then
the
that can
agenda
go
for the
ahead
next
and,
meeting.
Next
right,
agenda
because
item.
it's still under.
Yeah.
I'm sure we can work something out.
It seems to me that if we have something, say we managed to hire a consultant for a project, you would tell Larry, you get 2 minutes on the agenda, you say, look, we just managed to do
No, I know, it's
it.
substantial, it's just more like,
Well, it's on announcements. We, like you said, we have announcements as a standing item, so this happens there.
that's
How
the
many
place.
times are we gonna be doing it? It's not gonna be that.
Yeah,
I
that's
don't think it's gonna be
right.
that great.
Yeah, or she could get up and say, yeah, we got funding from the county CIP budget to do the feasibility study. Or
That'd be nice
we
to know.
contracted with a consultant to do the study, just make that announcement and move on. Okay.
It's not something that has to be acted on, just let everybody know.
Yeah. Okay. So,
Just need a
did we already
motion,
move and adopt the matrix as it is?
No, I was gonna do it.
I thought that's where we
Well, I
we got sidetracked.
You need to make it.
So I make a motion to approve the action matrix as presented.
Second.
Discussion?
I agree.
You don't have that kind of power?
So this
I was
is
gonna
what
second, but he beat me.
Yeah, he beat you to it. Any discussion?
So for every action, it will be like the action, goals, objectives, and then it breaks down to 1, 2, I mean, and if there's any type of amendments that I feel that I would like to make on this here, is that possible?
No, because that's right out of the Puna CDP.
Yeah, not on this thing.
That's what's in the Puna, you'd have to amend the Puna CDP to amend, like, under action 3.5.3D,
Yeah.
that language right in that box is all right out of the CDP. So you can't really amend that unless you
So is the
amend
goal,
the
so is the
CDP.
objectives, right? Those are all, the whole page is out of CDP,
Well, yeah, actually it is,
so nothing could be amended.
on that page.
Yeah.
But it's under items 1, 2, 3, or however
The
it's
update.
however that action item is structured in the CDP after that, then that's all what's subject to amendment.
I see we work with it. amend it as we go. It's a living document.
Does that answer your question,
No, but
you
we
say that
cannot change anything, correct, is what you're telling me?
No, on, under the first page for that action item, 3.5.3B, that language that talks
Just
about
straight
the
out of the
action,
CDP.
the goals
Yeah.
and the objectives,
Yeah.
that's verbatim out of the Puna CDP. We can't amend that.
Unless you amend to go
Without
with
amending
the
the
whole
Puna
plan.
CDP,
Yeah.
okay?
Are we able to do that?
We can, well, yeah, the action committee, that's one of your responsibilities. If there is a need for interim amendments to the Puna CDP, you can propose that, yes. But there's the long drawn out process, that has to be finally approved by the county council. But that's.
The only reason why I'm bringing it up is.
You have to get a council person to sponsor the bill.
Or wait till, what, one more year?
Well, it's 10 years it's supposed to be, so
So two in.
so it's 18.
I want to finish what I was saying first.
Yeah.
The reason why I'm saying, because in here, in action number 2, on the second line, it says, but retain traditional fishing and use, or should be fishing practices, because it's not just fishing in that area. Use as Keiki pools, but retain traditional fish netting use. Is that restricting it to just fish netting? When it states that?
That's the language in the CDP.
Well, I'm just asking, so in your assumption, does that restrict it to just traditional fish netting use? Because there's different fishing practices that actually happen that I personally do, so. I mean, would you guys assume that it states that it says fish netting use, that it's only preserving fish netting use, or is it fishing practices?
You know, you would have to go back to the working group notes. That's one of the reasons that we have the working group notes, so that when questions like that come up about how do you interpret this, what were they thinking when they put this in here, what was the discussion, and those would be available to us, we would go back and look at those and find out what they were thinking when they put that in and figure out how to
Good
interpret
idea.
that.
That's correct. Oshie? Oshie?
Just partially in line with what you were saying, that's part of my dilemma in dealing with the matrix. There's a lot of things I've run across trying to fit it into the Puna Community Development Plan is challenging. I mean, because there are a number of things that seem out of date, we're not relevant for, not quite worded right, or what I found repeatedly, it's a little bit of a stretch to pull that. And, but beyond that, which is a whole huge issue, but there's not much to do about it. But there is an amendment that I proposed, but that's another subject, about the geothermal.
Yep.
I wonder whatever happened to that.
Went to the director and there it sits.
Sits, yep.
And I have inquired about it and asked for him to respond because we at least deserve a response. And didn't get a response to that inquiry either.
Yeah. I'm not surprised, so there you have it, trying to make an amendment, that's not my part. So, in terms of, so when we go to do it, if we're championing something and it hasn't been done up, we will fill in this whole area about pulling off the CDP community development plan.
No,
This whole-
you don't have to do that part. We can do that part.
And then will
You just
we
need to
have-
maintain what's going on section for each.
Do we need, is that going to be pretty straightforward? I mean, is that going to be fairly apparent, or do we need a little training on how to do that?
Well, I think we're gonna have to play it by ear to a certain extent. You can submit your update information to us, and I think we will probably have to work back and forth with each individual person until we all kind of start working with the same format and language style, and just to develop some continuity in the way these things look and read.
So the old priority list of the project is that we already designated champions. So we're gonna assume that that person's still in this group, that they're still a champion for now. And we're gonna send this to that person on that list to kind of
I would think that we would use that as
transfer
a
it over.
starting point for determining which ones of the action items need to get updated first, yeah. and just transpose information available there every year. Okay?
So there's discussion about us adopting this.
We're discussed out.
Are we ready to vote? All in favor of accepting the matrix?
We're not gonna let you sit next to Elmer anymore.
We have to set
video.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, then we need suggestions for the agenda for next month.
Just a reminder.
And
I will be,
I will not be here.
oh, do
What's
we
the
not
date?
have,
What's the date of
the
it?
three of us are gone.
Oshie, John, you're gone, and who
I'm
else?
done.
What's the date again, sorry?
The 12th, yeah.
11?
Friday's
No,
It's the 10th. It's the 10th.
Yep. Well, wait a minute.
I said a month, 3 months ago, but I knew it.
June 10th, they go ahead, right?
I don't think I have a board retreat, I don't know that I'll be, I could be late, but I could be here on
Yeah,
time.
we're close to not having a quorum.
Yeah, we need 5.
That's the Tuesday, Susie,
Yeah,
yeah.
Tuesday the 10th, and it's on, it's on.
I think
Okay, so just for everybody, please, if anybody besides Susie, Oshie, Patty, and Ferris cannot be here on time for the June meeting, let me know in advance. You're not gonna make it? Well, how late you gonna be? Okay, you, action committee need to decide whether you're gonna cancel the meeting for June, or if you're gonna delay it until later in the day, or schedule it for a different day. You need to do that now.
Who's gonna be late versus not showing up at all?
Well, we can't start the meeting if we don't have a quorum.
Well, that's what I'm saying, I'm trying to see who's gonna be late so we can
Well,
start
we
at a
already
later,
know.
at a later date.
Yeah, we
at
know
a later
that
time.
Susan's gonna
Can we
be
do it
at
earlier?
least late, if not here, not here at all. And Sharon's
That's
saying,
where I'm fine.
Sharon would be the 5th person that won't be here on time.
I see, we did this last year, we canceled the summer meeting.
Yes, we did Jewish cancel 3 months ago.
Was it June?
Yeah.
If you guys wanna cancel June, hang on, break mine.
I wasn't,
Won't break your heart either.
that's the issues here.
But it's up to you guys. What do you wanna do?
I think there's a risk that there won't be quorum, and therefore it would look bad if we have one and we have to cancel it. I say I make a motion we cancel June meeting.
The motion to cancel the meeting for June, seconded by Susie, discussion.
What's the other option? I mean, everybody did earlier?
We
Well, there
canceled
are,
it.
the other
There
options
would
are,
be
like I
another
said,
option.
we could either have it later in the day, we could have it at a different time on the same day, or you could schedule it for a different day in the month, which means everybody's gotta be able to coordinate their calendars as we speak here.
we can make it the 3rd Tuesday. We can do anything.
But right now, you have a motion to
Cancel.
cancel the meeting for June, and then we would meet again in July. So, any discussion on canceling?
I think that's why I asked who's gonna be late versus not here at all, so that way we could decide on the time, that same date at a later time.
Yeah.
So that's why I said who's gonna be here late, or actually better, because who's not gonna be here, period, that
We
day.
know Sharon not until 4:30 or so.
No, who's not gonna be here, period.
Oh, Patty, Oshie, Ferris.
So we can
And
still have
Sharon.
quorum if we go on a later date,
Yes.
so
Yeah.
when would you say, 5?
4:30.
So you just wanna go?
Five's good.
Yeah, so you wanna go
I withdraw my
5?
Were you able to come from 5 to 8?
Oh, no, then I have my, then I have my Rotary, no, I can't, I'm out.
You're out.
Yeah, that's.
Rotary is more important than the action committee? I gotta go back and check that
So
out.
you're not sure then, right?
I'm not sure, just.
Okay, so that'll be more than, so I guess that counts, probably the other.
Okay. Is
We
there any
want
more,
to vote?
any more discussion? No?
All in favor?
Opposed?
Abstain?
One abstain.
I don't wanna say yes or no.
So
yeah.
we need to get our agenda items to Larry on a timely basis for July.
So have a nice June.
Actually, one more thing, on here you said agenda for next meeting, the next meeting being in July, can I add on here that the new subcommittee we created present, present anything to the
The next meeting could be in
right, about the
July.
town meeting.
Yeah.
Are we able to do anything?
When do we start our budget items?
Good, so you wanna go ahead and form the July?
So we can just talk about it.
So that they can start working.
But are we able to?
Got a good question.
So being that we're the subcommittee for our annual town meeting, or our meetings about the PCP, are we able to do an outreach without the consent of the action committee, or do we have to have the action
No,
committee?
we're just recording what options you have and then we'll vote it here, so we're not setting anything in stone.
When you're a subcommittee, if you do a report and you can't discuss the report at that meeting, you have to discuss it the following meeting. So remember that, right?
I'm looking into that, and some of us are meeting on Thursday for, a follow-up training, I guess, for, sunshine law as well as for budget.
That's at 1 o'clock?
And with, yeah,
It's a reminder.
the planning department, and with regards to the sunshine law, I'm gonna be your trainer.
Remember that we all did this, you didn't have to do the sunshine law, it was just budget, because we, the new ones, went to the, with Lincoln, to the sunshine law training. We discussed that.
Yeah,
last
well,
time.
there's some new information, we're gonna have maybe some discussion about it. I gotta talk to the attorneys, because there's some new information that came out, that when I read it, I'm going, it's not black and white, that a subcommittee report is not open for discussion or action at the meeting in which it's given, as long as it's properly agendized. And that is contrary to at least two different attorneys, actually, if you count Lincoln, three, who have suggested otherwise. But I have an opinion from the state attorney general's office that as long as what you're voting on is, and what you're discussing is clearly identified in the agenda, regardless of whether it's a subcommittee or an individual action committee member that asks that to be on the agenda, it's open for discussion and action by the committee.
So could you word it in such a way that ours is not just a report, but a proposal for the action? If we're gonna want it, even if we want to do August, July, we need to.
So that was,
That's why I
so
brought
my
it
question,
up.
my original question was, could we actually go and do an outreach without the consent of the committee?
Well,
Like having a.
the roles and responsibilities of the action committee, each one of you has a responsibility to go out and promote and advocate for
So
the
that.
Puna CDP. So in essence, yes. To raise public awareness that there is
That's my question,
a
just
community
because-
development plan, and that there is an action committee that's working towards implementing it. That's part of what your job is to expand that awareness. But I think what we're talking about here is more of an organized event.
Yeah, we weren't, I wasn't specific, because
Yeah.
her, the event
Almost
that
a
she was talking about
celebration
was.
of the fact that something is happening.
Yeah, so the event that's happening in Volcano or Mountain View is on July 4th, that's why.
So
before our.
It's before our next meeting.
But that doesn't mean that you can't go there and
That's
talk
what,
to
yeah,
people
so that's all I want to
about-
know, that I was okay if we
Yeah.
Now the
decide to
subcommittee.
Just be
do.
careful, it doesn't turn out to be a whole bunch of you going up there and you get into a situation where you might be.
It's for people.
You know, the whole sunshine law.
Well, there's something,
But it's not a subcommittee meeting, it's just, they're gonna go out and do something.
But, you know, more than two of us can be in the same place talking about PCDP business. Unless we're on a subcommittee, we're in the
If
deputy
it's
report.
subcommittee, if it's a formal subcommittee, it can be four.
but can they be public outreach as a subcommittee, or is
But
it
if
just
we
gonna
decide
meet?
to,
Yeah. No, they can meet and discuss and they can engage with the community, yeah, their meeting. It's just like if they have a meeting and it's open to the public, yeah.
Okay.
I would say.
One more question on this.
Should some of us old folks, older folks come to Thursday and, say there's some changes you think?
Well, the budget is basically will be the same information all over. It's relatively minor tweaks, but most of the changes I see over what you learned last year might have to do with timelines and some minor adjustments to the process of what happens to the recommendations that come from the action committees to the planning director, then what happens to them. That kind of changed from one year to the next, because it was a change they made and then didn't bother to tell me about until after they were done. But it didn't really have a huge impact on you guys, it had an impact on me. But, so there isn't a huge change on the
Can you confirm the
budget.
time, Cole? Is it 1 or 2? People are-
No, I'm sorry, it's 2 o'clock, yes, 2 o'clock, right?
2 o'clock on Thursday.
I know the email you
15th.
requested, the office from 2 to 4:30.
2 to 4:30 is what I said in the last email I sent out.
You just told her 1, right?
I did.
And I have it 1 o'clock.
Yeah, I have it at 1
No, I'm sorry, it's 2 to 4:30, but we should be done well before 4:30.
But if there's some changes in the budget, I would like,
Well, whether or not I bring that up on Thursday might depend upon whether I have a chance to discuss with the attorneys. I've talked about it with April, and she tends to agree with my interpretation of this new information that I got. But again, we're not the people with a lot of
Could you just send it out in the information out to us in an email?
I can do that, but I want to make sure that,
When you get the information.
yeah, when I get it, yeah.
That's why then we can know
Oh, yeah.
that we
Then
can
you
get
wouldn't have to show up
it.
on the later.
Yeah, exactly.
I have one more question. When the subcommittee on our community event, do they need to submit a report that you agendize and announce to the public? Sorry.
It's too late.
Do we need to submit a report about our subcommittee?
That you are able to notify the public a week in advance? Do they need to
For
do that?
the
For the,
public outreach event thing. I would, if you want to be able to discuss and act on it, excuse me. There's a testimony. At the July meeting, then you should have a written report. And from that, then I can put enough information in the agenda to make it available for discussion and action. So if you're gonna have specific recommendations, and even if they're just bullet items, list them out. That way, anybody looks at the
So
agenda.
you can put us on the agenda for later, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And move to close the meeting?
Amen.
And
oh,